So, yeah, thank you. Sounds like I was about to commit a crime. I walked into somebody's security system. Well, let me first of all say good morning, and I want to say thank you for having me back again, because I want to say this is probably my third opportunity to speak here at Canyon Creek Presbyterian to share a bit about Gateway of Grace. And as Marion said, just got back yesterday afternoon from almost a month in Europe. It's a vacation that was long overdue. We hadn't had a vacation in like 3 years. And we said, we want to do this while we've got all our resources. We got health and, the ability to do this. And we had a blast. Yeah, I'll just say one of our favorite places to go was Mexico City, or is Mexico City. And obviously driving there is a bit different. And so, but after spending time in Italy, Mexico City is a calm place. My motto became just close your eyes and ride, because if you open them, you're not going to enjoy it. But anyway, so glad to be here. I'll just kind of start a little bit from the beginning. Most of you probably know at least a little bit about Gateway of Grace. But Gateway of Grace was started, we're coming up on our 15th year anniversary this summer. It was started by my wife, Samira Page, a refugee from Iran from almost 30 years ago. And try to give her a short version of her very complicated story. She had to flee Iran, early 20s, married, 2 small children, 2 small boys, ended up through Turkey, ended up in Mexico City. And the people they hired to get them out of Iran abandoned them in Mexico City, the largest city of its time, 30 years ago. So they spent about almost a year there. And then she felt like she got discovered by the Iranian government there when she was attending a funeral of a young lady that she had befriended. So they ended up leaving there, coming to the U.S., and the church met them on the first day they got here. They went to a Motel 6, like 7 o'clock in the morning. This Baptist church, she called the Islamic Center. The Islamic Center said, we can't help, but we know someone who possibly can. And they sent over this husband and wife who were they work with Bosnian refugees. And so they said, well, let us take you to this apartment complex. They took them to a fully furnished 2-bedroom apartment that was set for a Bosnian family who didn't make it to the U.S. And all of that happened in a matter of hours of being in the U.S. with no documentation and not knowing anyone. The backstory to her is she had already had a vision of the Virgin Mary as a little girl. And so she was already primed for Christianity. So she converts to Christianity sometime in the first year or so of being in the U.S. A number of years later, she goes to seminary, gets a master's, and then she goes back, and by this time I'm in her life, and she goes back and gets her doctorate in church missions. Her story is a big part of how we do what we do, how the church met her and was the church to her family when they had no one, and then her seminary training in church missions. And so a lot of what we do is based on that. When we say refugee, refugee it has become almost a political term, right? And so I don't have it in this PowerPoint, but a few years back, we said we've got to reclaim the term. And so if we communicate via email or conversations or you come visit, we're going to say refugee families to rehumanize these people, right? Because I tell people, when you meet a refugee, you have met people in whom the government knows more about them than it knows about you and me. Their lives have been probed by Homeland Security, FBI, sometimes CIA, whatever government entity needs to get involved. And it is a years-long process. There are some exceptions, like if they're from Afghanistan, we had conflict there, so they get these special immigrant visas. But for the most part, their journey can be 3 to 7 we met a couple that had been in refugee status for 20 years. All their kids were born in refugee status. And so it is a long, hard road. Nobody wakes up just thinking, I think I'm going to move to America. It doesn't work like that. It is the United Nations that works with nations to determine who goes where. Now, if you have family in that country, that might, tip the scale a little bit. But for the most part, someone else, some government entity is going to tell you where you're going. And so these are the people we work with. Excuse me.
And you said they don't send them all to U.S.
Oh, no, no. As a matter of fact,
Australia, send them all to peaceful places.
Switzerland, some countries in Africa, actually, are they, I don't know if it's Nigeria or the Congo, but there are one or two countries in Africa that took in Afghan refugees back when Afghanistan fell apart in August of 21. So they're all over. And the irony is, there's a whole lot of, we'll get into this, I suppose, at some point. There's a whole lot of chatter like we're being, no, America still is not the top nation for refugees. These much smaller countries take in far more refugees than the U.S. does. Right?
Are they all going to Christian countries?
No, not. Well, I say they're not Christian countries. Some of them can be very secular. And, they're not, Christian as we see it in the U.S. But anyway, so there's a biblical basis for how we treat the refugee, and I won't give us a theological lesson on it, but I will just let you see, from Old Testament to New, the Bible has a lot to say about how Christians treat the stranger, depending on your translation, the stranger, the sojourner, the foreigner. It has a lot to say. And what I love about how the scripture lays it out is it says, and you were strangers in Egypt, right? God is connecting back the fact that don't forget, you were sojourners, right? And it's easy to do that, when you meet someone whose culture is not like yours. So that's a couple of them. This one, oftentimes we share it. I kind of share this is a different translation, but I use that to say, since God is sovereign, meaning that nobody moves anywhere in the world and does anything without ultimately passing through the sovereignty of God. So I would ask, why then are we living in a time that there are more people on the move in the world than any time in human history, right? Now, again, these aren't people that are just, dying to, break into America or any other Western nation. These are people that if they stay, a refugee is qualified by, if this person stays, they most likely will be persecuted or killed, all right? My wife cannot go back to Iran. She made peace with that when she left. And then when she became a Christian, that kind of sealed the deal, right? So she made peace with the fact that when her father passed away almost 2 years ago, I can't go to her funeral. If her mother precedes her in this life, she can't go to her funeral. She's made peace with that because she is a Christian. But we share this, that, this is God showing you that if God is sovereign and you've got all these people moving in the world from climate change, famine, civil conflict, war, whatever it is, then why is he moving people in the world or allowing them to move? And we believe, as the scriptures, so that some of these nations that are closed to Christianity, they can now be exposed to Christians and to our faith. And this is one that Samira uses quite a bit, when, it's pretty self-explanatory. And Jesus says, and the disciples are confused, and he says, yeah, when you've done it to them, you've done it to me. And so we strive, even with our staff, our small staff, and certainly the volunteers that we have, we strive to keep everyone connected, us included, to the reality that you see the person, but you also have to see the spiritual component to this. You don't know what God is doing in this. We realize we're not going to see every refugee come to faith in Christ. Some of them are already Christians, persecuted for their faith. Many are not. Irrelevant to us. What we believe is God has called us to serve him. And we have my wife as Exhibit A. She was a Muslim, and these Christians reached out to her, and the way they loved and took her in, it was the watering of the seed that was already planted in her, right? And she dedicated her life, to the church. So we do a lot of stuff, and some of you may know that, but if I could break it down into just some core areas of Gateway of Grace, English as a second language is the big thing. We work with a lot of people who are professionals, who were professionals in their country, engineers, doctors, teachers, you name it. We have come across people, work with families uh, where someone in that family was a professional and they had to leave all that behind, and none of that transfers to the US, right? You've dedicated your life to this profession, and coming here, you got to hit zero and go back to school like you never studied. So most of them just give up on that, and all their concern now is at least my kids will have a better life. And so they're satisfied. Absolutely nothing wrong with working at Walmart or driving Uber or whatever job you can get, but these are professionals who've set that aside for the safety and benefit of their families. And then we help them. We have a partnership with Dallas College. So through the ESL program, well, let me back up just a bit. Because the U.S. was in Afghanistan for so long, the reality is we've served a lot of Afghan people for the past many years, and many of them are women. And it's no secret that life is difficult for women in Afghanistan. As a matter of fact, it is the only country in the world that forbids women to be educated beyond sixth grade, right? As a matter of fact, one of the religious leaders just in the past year, 8 months to a year or so, he even floated the idea of like, how does it benefit our country that half our population is not educated? That was so unacceptable that this man had to go into hiding. That's how oppressive it is. And many of those women that, if you remember the image of Afghanistan in August of 21, when all those people were surrounding that U.S. cargo plane and they were on the outside of the fence at that air base, well, months later, many of those women were sitting in our ESL classroom, right? So your life is turned upside down, and now you're trying to learn another language, right? You walk in some of our ESL classes, and you'll think it's a children's classroom. Well, no, they've got to learn the alphabet, right? It is when I watch my wife writing sometimes, so she's doing Bible study, just to show you how different it is. So she's writing on the board in English, but of course our congregation is Farsi speaking. So she's writing in English this way, and then she'll drop down and she'll write in Farsi the other way. I tell people, I said, man, it's like someone took a chicken, put his feet in ink, and just started. I have not a clue. Even her sons don't even write Farsi. She just goes right back. Yeah, so left to right for us, right to left for them, and there's nothing that correlates. There's no alphabet that looks like it. And so you just imagine you're not educated in your country, and now you're trying to learn another language, and you don't have sometimes the fundamentals of language. It's not that they're not intelligent, it's that they've been limited to understanding that. But I got to tell you, in all of that, it's a joy to see them go from little English to pretty good English to taking them to Dallas College Richland campus and seeing them enroll in college, right? We have a young lady from Afghanistan. She's going to always be a part of us. She went through the entire program, and we helped her get a job at Walmart. We got a car donated for her. Um, then she wanted to go to medical assistant school. So she went to Dallas Career Institute. Fast forwarding, she is a medical assistant at Medical City, right off of 75 in Forest Lane, right? She had about 25 words of English. So it's opportunity that we have. Then financial literacy and empowerment, because what we realized, it just became very sobering to us that a few years back, it's like, wow, in everything we do, we were just hyper focused on refugees and all the issues. But then we thought, well, realistically, we're dealing with people who are at or below the poverty level because their family sizes are bigger than ours. You know, they are the sizes of families are like what it was for us, for families in the 70s, 60s and back, right? So these are young families, but big families. One person is working. Even if she could go out and get a job, they can't afford childcare. So it's this you're here in the richest country in human history, but it's like looking at a picture on a wall. You can't access it because, it's just too expensive. And so we've started placing emphasis on financial literacy, helping people understand you can get in debt in America like as easy as breathing. I jokingly say to them, is listen, if you've got a pulse, America can give you debt. That's all you need, right? And honestly, many of them find that out the hard way. You need a car. You don't need a $500 a month car note. Get a cash car, So we found ourselves reacting to a lot of stuff. So let's get ahead of a lot of this. So we started focusing on that. And then healthcare. Healthcare in America is just different. Yeah, I know it's expensive, but it is among the best in the world. But if you come from a country where women's health is not emphasized, what we found is it's neglected, and then you go to ER, boom, $10,000, $15,000, you're in debt, just like that. And now your problem has been exacerbated by your health. So we began to focus on those three areas. Go ahead.
Talk to them about, there's methods to eliminate that medical debt without paying for it.
Well,
And it's legit. And it's offered through the hospital. It's offered through all these systems.
well, yeah, but again, keep in mind, a lot of the people that we will help in that, they learn about us from others, right? Because we've helped this family, it's like multi-level marketing. They go to, hey, this church, we're a church to them. No matter what we tell them, they think we're a church. And so we help a lot of people who don't have this information. For those who are in our ESL program and families pretty close to us, we can get them. That's why with these two areas here, we just started emphasizing, right there. Okay. We started emphasizing this to the broader community, right? Because we wanted to get ahead of as much of this as we can, not just refugees. We figured, you know what? If the neighbor to the refugee comes to our financial fitness seminar, fine, that's fine. As long as we get the people that we know need this information. So that's been our emphasis now for about the past year and a half is education, 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 because America's a great country, but there are a whole lot of savvy businesses and people out here that know how to exploit the naivety of people who don't understand just how complex and how quickly you can get into debt. So we strive to meet the practical, emotional, and spiritual needs. We're not seeing a whole lot of new refugees, as you might imagine right now, but one of the core things we've done is we don't resettle them. That's Catholic Charities, Mosaic, and other resettlement agencies that get government funding to resettle them. But what we do is we come alongside them and we help furnish an apartment through donated furniture, housewares, kitchenwares, and it's a way of us connecting to the family, right? And once we do that, then we discover, oh, your kids need to be registered in school. And so we'll use volunteers, a Sunday school class. Can you help such and such get their kids registered in school? Because they don't know our school system functions. You've got to be registered 3 months ahead. And no, your kids should be in pre-K. For many of them, if they're from the eastern part of the world, putting your child in a school at 4 years old is just not normal. It's hard for them to believe that I can detach from my kid at 4 years old and put them in school. So we're like, no, it's good. And thankfully, once we got a few of them in there, they began to talk and say, oh yeah, this is a good thing, right? So, because keep in mind, those kids are going home to a non-English speaking household, or at least the household, English is not the first language spoken. So I tell them, I said, listen, you've got to learn English. If you're not, your kids are going to be in class with kids born in this country, and it's going to be like this. They're going to be falling behind day after day, month after month, school year after school year. And so, again, we use volunteers to do that. These are just some of the pictures. This young lady, this is our most recent graduation. We had about 60 students graduated. We rarely ever take pictures of their face, because if they have family still back in their home countries, if they're Muslim, that can be problematic, especially if they're Afghan. But she's okay. She doesn't have family here. This was our outstanding award winner. Let's see, I think she was Yeah, she was studying economics before life fell apart for her, right? These are just some previous students. This lady on the end, her name is Rifat. And Rifat is, she's got to be like 73 now, but we had to create other things to keep her coming because she had gone through all our classes, but she still wanted to come to Gateway of Grace. So we had to create another level so that she could be a part of our program. Yeah. This lady here, I don't know if I have a picture of her or not. Her name is Shazia, and Shazia is fantastic. She is about as sweet as they come. She helps in our childcare area. And she has a certificate in phlebotomy, right? But she has small children. And so she said, well, Mr. Dennis, my husband he doesn't want me to work so long that I can't be with the children. So I would like to just stay here. It's like, okay, Shazia, we'll figure something out. Yeah, these two she's from South Africa, she's from Pakistan. They met in South Africa and they've been friends ever since. Their kids were best of friends. Of course, this is a biology. Right. Well, so we have pre-K, right? We have pre-K and toddler classroom. So if the children are mobile, we put them in pre-K. I'm sorry, we put them in a toddler room. If they're 3.5, if they're almost 3 to 4.5, we put them in pre-K. And it's a, if I can say so, it's a pretty comprehensive program. We have a friend who just retired from the Irving ISD, Early Childhood Education. And when we learned, this time last year. And so when we learned of it, like, man, we're like salivating, like, okay, give her a few days of retirement before we reach out to her. But we talked to her and she loved it. So she came and she leads the program. She's not there every day, but she has produced the curriculum that produces this program. And so when these kids, they're the last thing to come in because when they come in, the whole room, the parents, everybody's like paparazzi. All the parents get up with their cameras. So they're the last part of the program because after that, we've kind of lost control. All right. And there's Shazi again. This is Layli. Layli, she's from Iran. I think she's from Shiraz. We met her the second day she arrived. She's been here now about 11 years. And obviously she and Samira are really connected. She's a persecuted Christian. She was jailed in Iran for 53 or 57, I keep forgetting, 50 plus days. She was jailed in Iran. The only reason they let her out is because her daughter at the time was 18 months old and they didn't know what to do with the kid. And ironically, now her daughter is a junior in St. Timothy's School over in Dallas. And so, and actually, she's leaving us. We're going to make the announcement next week. She's leaving us to go work for St. Timothy. So, and actually, we got her connected to St. Timothy, and they scholarshiped her daughter from the time she was like, I think, 5 years old.
St. Timothy Public School.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so she's gotten a Christian education through Gateway of Grace. So I talked a lot about partnerships. Obviously, we're small staff, so we don't do a lot of this stuff. We partner with organizations that do this. So Parkland is one of our newest partners. We had a health fair here recently, and Parkland came out and they did mammograms on site because, again, remember I said preventative health care is critical. If we can get you to get acclimated to preventative health care, that's money that you're not spending in the ER. You have some measure of understanding where you are health-wise. So they did multiple types of screenings, but the big thing they did was they did, I think, 20 mammograms. This is Layli, the lady I just showed you. This is her daughter. Yeah, she was 18 months old when she came here. Okay, and this is Juan. He is our family resources manager. He's from Cuba. He's been here about 16 or 17 years, and he is fantastic. Financial fitness. So Cloud Strategies is one. We partner now with Chase Bank, and they come in and they do the fundamentals of banking. I'll say more about that in a moment. So part of our ESL program, the way we kind of design our ESL program is Well, I call it, it's the wide part of the funnel. No matter where you come from in the world, if you don't have the English language, all that you may know, or all your education, it is subjected to how much English do you have, right? Intelligent people. I mean, I just sat across from a dentist, guy who was a dentist for 14 years, and he's helping him enroll in a medical assistance program because you got to hit zero. None of that stuff transfers. And so in the ESL program, we said, okay, once they get here, then we start putting all these up. They think English only until they come to the program. But throughout the semester, we're going to have what we call family enrichment. And that's bringing in, child care, like, for example, getting kids to go to bed early. That's not always culturally a thing, right? And so we discovered that by accident. It's like, okay, we have these toddlers and pre-K kids, and they're cranky. It's like, man, what is going on? So started digging into that. It's like, oh, he stays up late because you're praying, right? So no, he's got to go to bed at 8 o'clock. He needs 12 hours of sleep. So we bring in people to do training on that, just help them acclimate or integrate into American culture. So this is a zoo trip. So we make it fun. So it's not just class time all the time. We do zoo trip. We make a big deal out of Valentine's Day. I don't think I have all the pictures for that. That's just a few of the ladies. I think she's from Syria. She's from Syria. Speaks for itself. Fantastic kids. What's interesting though is that, they're learning the alphabet, and depending on their parents' level of English, they're learning the alphabet at the same time down the hallway. And guess who surpasses their parents? So it's sweet, but it can also be a challenge, because as the kids get older, like if they have 8 or 10-year-old, sometimes that 10 or 12-year-old is the translator for the parents. So it puts the children kind of in an awkward situation, because they're translating over pretty significant issues, right? A lot of partners, with Christmas, holidays. As my wife, she loves kids. She always seeks them out. So I won't belabor with all that. So let me just say that I'll transition to some questions, because I know you got questions if we have time for it. How to get involved. Kathy is our director of operations. She is very detailed, and we're grateful for that. Nicole is our program manager. She handles all the big events that we do. We do a Thanksgiving Day dinner down at the cathedral, the Episcopal Cathedral in downtown Dallas. You probably have seen it on TV because, it's a slow news day, one thing. Yeah. But we get Fox 4, NBC5, CBS 11, WFAA, KRLD, they all come. So the irony is, what was kind of funny until a few years ago, is that Samira and I were doing interviews the whole time, right? We do the program, then we step over and do an interview. And so all this wonderful food, and we got to eat nothing. For two Thanksgivings in a row, we went to Whataburger. Oh no, I love Whataburger. But one of the ladies from the cathedral, she started setting a plate aside for us. But anyway, so Nicole is over that program, Thanksgiving Day dinner. Then 2 weeks later, we do a Christmas party. And that's held in different churches just because of size. And what we're trying to do with that is integrate them and use natural points to help them integrate into society by meeting Christians, to be honest with you, right? And so keep in mind, some of these people are working like on that Saturday for the Christmas party. And they're working, right? So here's the mom and all these kids. And so we get volunteers to bring them. And then the natural relationship oftentimes forms, and it's like, oh, so you're looking for a job, or your son needs this. And so, bam, there you go. You have a family that's supposedly adopted. And then these are some ways you can get involved. We're always needing support. Probably the 2 biggest things, we have 2 ESL teachers been with us a really long time. They're going to be stepping back. One of them, they want to travel, right? They just reached that stage where they want to travel for extended periods of time, and they don't want to push it into the summer. So if you or someone you know is open to helping with ESL, we'd love to have you, love to talk to you about it. It's not as much of a commitment as you would think. And I would just say this, talk to Sandra, and Sandra will tell you, you just get hooked. All we need you to do, if you want to come and visit, sit in a classroom, just call us, let us know, and we'll connect you with that. All right, so I think I left enough time for a couple of questions or so. Anything about how we do what we do, or?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm good with it.
Going, you know, here, non-designations are getting hurt right now,
Non-government agencies.
Thank
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here's my disclaimer up front. I don't know a whole lot about what's been going on over the past few weeks because we were on vacation and we didn't take our laptops. Whatever we did by phone. And so we literally, we didn't look at news intentionally until I think Wednesday or Thursday. My days are kind of running together now. Something popped up and I was like, oh, wow, that sounds interesting. So I called our team and I was talking to, I think it was Kathy, and she was telling me, I was like, oh man. So my concern is that it was national, but local media is going to come out and they're going to want to get a local angle on it. So I was telling them, don't offer any comments. I said, because I mean, I know all the people are going to come because we talked to them other times. And I said, they won't press you on it, but just say, hey, no, Dennis and Samir are out. If you want to reach out when they get back, that's fine. So the point is, we just don't know a whole lot of what's been happening recently. But what we can tell you is when the funding was frozen to the resettlement agencies, this is what happened practically, okay? So these were people who had just arrived, I mean, like weeks, 2-3 weeks. And the resettlement process is there's a measure of support for 3 months. Now, for some people, it might seem like a lot, but it's not. It still doesn't cover everything because in 3 months, you've got to get a social security number. That's the government, so it's going to take some time. Then you have to get work authorization. And so what do you do in the meantime? You can't go out and work unless you get a cash job somewhere, right? And the reality is oftentimes they are exploited when they do these cash jobs because what are you going to do, right? You're working illegally anyway. So that's not a good thing. And so these people were knocking on our door that Monday, like no case manager because the funding was frozen. So you saw in the news where people got laid off and all this, and we're not a resettlement agency, but we're ministry also. So we said, okay, we're not budgeted for it, but we got to figure out how do we affect as much of this as we can without blowing our budget to pieces. And so we have to step into those spaces and provide some assistance. I've shared a lot, but I would say if there are a few things I'd ask you to remember is this. Refugees don't wake up and decide to come to America. It just doesn't work. Now, I'm not talking about issues at the border. I'm talking about refugees. People, if you meet a refugee, they've been vetted, right? They've been vetted. Even the border stuff, there's a measure of vetting before they're let in, right? So, you know, it just doesn't work that way. The second thing I would say is it's not like any of us, you know, deciding, let's move to California. I'm feeling like Iowa. You sell your house, you do whatever, you know, you do all the things necessary and you move. It's not that way. My wife was a PhD student at the University of Tehran. She thought she was going to school that morning. She thought she was going to the university, and she's well into her program, more than halfway through. A knock on the door. They were looking for a book. I think it was Satanic Verses, Simon Rusty. Okay, like, order on Amazon if you want it. Not over there, right? And so her husband, he was, I think, a Sunni Muslim who was persecuted in Iran, right? It's like Baptists and Presbyterians, right? It's like extreme differences. So they weren't even looking for her. They ransacked the house, and before the day was over, she and her husband and her 2 small children were in the mountains of Iran trying to get out of the country, right? It turned her world upside down. They left everything, accounts, bank accounts, all that stuff was frozen, right? That's how quickly you can become a refugee. And one other illustration I'll give you is Ukraine, because I thought I'll be opportunistic here and say, okay, that's not a good thing. But when it started, the weekend before Russia invaded Ukraine, you had people interviewing people in Ukraine. They were in the malls and coffee shops, and they're like, they were so used to being threatened that they didn't take it seriously. So when Russia invaded, people started packing up their cars, all this stuff, and they were driving, but they were driving for so long that they drove out of places that had fuel because they had been bombed. And those people who had homes and careers and savings accounts and retirement accounts, when they made it to Poland, and some days later, it was all that they could carry on their backs. They left those cars along the side of the road. That is how quickly a person can become a refugee. They never thought it. Matter of fact, there was a young lady who was training with us. I'm sorry, with Samira. She was interning on the Samira at Church of the Holy Nativity. And she was a video game producer that create video games. And one of the teams she worked with was in Ukraine. And he had to go offline for weeks until he could get relocated to get back to work. So thankfully, he could work remotely. So when he fled Ukraine, he could resume his job, right? That's how quickly you become a refugee. And the last thing I'd say is this. It takes years to get out of that process. Then there's trauma associated with it, right? I was joking with Marion earlier about we did the Amalfi Coast when we were in Europe. And I said, it was the most beautiful and the most frightening thing I've ever done. I was telling my wife, I said, I just pray that I don't have nightmares about looking down on it. It was traumatic for me. And seriously, I thought, is this kind of stuff going to surface? Now, I say that jokingly, but, we have worked with Afghans. Most of those people have never known life apart from war, 20 years of it. I mean, think about it. You're born, if you're 20 something, you were born into this. You don't know anything else but bombs and tanks and all that. So there's a bit of trauma in just transitioning to the wealthiest, most sophisticated country on the planet. That is not easy. No one wakes up. And if you want to get an idea of how hard it is, anytime a woman from Afghanistan wants to go back to Afghanistan because it is so all-consuming here for her, right? That's how hard it is. No one, yes, we've had, they love us. They love what we've done for them, but if they could go back safely to their country, it's Dallas-Fort Worth. There's a massive amount of people. We got a lot of these ladies will drive, but they only drive to Gateway of Grace. They won't drive to our events. It's like, no, it's another 10 stoplights and you'll be like, nope, that's as far as I can go. This traffic is too much for them. It's like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. And it's 5 to 7 years on average for refugees to resettle anywhere in the United States. It's just a whole different, massive country for them. And so if we don't see another brand new refugee this year, doesn't matter. Well, there's so many people we have yet to serve. Right? I'm sorry.
Refugee, if you gave birth in the US, is it I was curious.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Let me just try to answer that from what I know, what probably everybody else knows. If you're born in the US, you are a US citizen. The fact that there's an effort to undo that, that's a whole other dynamic.
That some kids have been refugee their whole life. And so I was wondering.
Oh, yeah. No, if they were born, no, they're still refugee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If they were born outside of the US, like this one couple, they finished law school, but they couldn't even graduate because of the conflict in their country. And they literally lived, and the only reason I know is because we met them several years ago on Christmas Eve. We learned about them. They didn't come to the Christmas party, so my wife and I on Christmas Eve were delivering Christmas gifts to individual families. And my wife's talking to her, and they both start crying, but I knew it wasn't like, tragic. But so on the way home, I said, "Well, what was that about?" She said, she says, well, she says, I've been a refugee for 20 years. She says, I feel like my life has been wasted. You know, she's, I says, all of my kids were born in a refugee status. And quickly in refugee status, America is unique in that, I say unique, it's a lot different than many other countries that take in refugees. So you'll see these other countries, much smaller countries, taking in 60, 80,000 a year. All that stuff's pre-planned at least a year in advance, right? But in many of those countries, they can't have a job that a person born in that country could have. They're relegated to menial task jobs, low pay. They can be exploited. They don't have the same rights. In America, you get your work authorization, your social security card and your work authorization. If you can make $1 million in 2025, in America, you can make $1 million, right? It's not so in many other places in the world, right? It is the demonstration of freedom. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm short on my time, so I'll wrap up. I just want to say thank you for letting me share. I would ask is one thing, in a very serious manner, please pray for Gateway of Grace for sure, but for our refugee families that we have yet to serve, and those and all the things that they're going through, because it is traumatic for them. When people with legal status are coming to my office asking if they're going to be kicked out of the country. And I'm having to comfort them and tell them, no, you have legal status in this country, right? So please pray for the whole process, but certainly those that we have yet to serve, that God will provide and give us wisdom in it. All right, thank you so much. Okay.
Unmic you too. Okay.
Adjourn.